The Leadership in Law podcast is powered by Law Marketing Zone. Transform your firm's digital presence with expert marketing solutions tailored exclusively for attorneys at lawmarketingzone.com.
Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guests, Alan Lee and Nicholas Lee, to the show today. Today's guests bring two sides of the same fight: the business owner who lived the problem and the attorney who helped solve it at scale. Alan is an entrepreneur who experienced what many fast-growing e-commerce brands fear most. After his company went viral, he watched nearly half of his revenue disappear to copycats undercutting him on platforms like Amazon. When traditional takedown methods failed, he took a different approach, going to court, shutting down hundreds of infringers, and recovering significant damages. That experience led him to co-found CopyCatch, where he now helps business owners protect their products and brands from online infringement. He's joined by his attorney, Nicholas Lee, an intellectual property and business lawyer with more than 20 years of experience. Nick advises clients on patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets, and is widely known for his work in high-stakes IP enforcement, especially Schedule A cases against online infringers. With a background as an analytical chemist and extensive litigation experience, he brings a unique mix of technical depth and practical results-driven strategy. Together, they offer a powerful perspective on how businesses and law firms can fight back against online infringement and turn it into a real opportunity. I'm excited to have you here today, guys. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the journey that got you here.
Yeah, maybe I'll lead off and then Nick can add on. Yeah, as you mentioned in the intro, my wife and I started this e-commerce business selling these plant pillows. This is a succulent pillow, and this is like a leaf pillow. Not your non-standard square pillows, right?
Right.
And we went viral during COVID because everyone was stuck at home, and all of a sudden, I want to make my space a little bit more lively. And so our business took off like wildfire, right? Maybe that's not a good analogy. Right after that, we saw like hundreds of copycat listings pop up everywhere, right? When you Google it, still today, this is still a problem. We're still fighting. I'll Google on Amazon, Walmart, Temu, eBay, every platform you can think of, right?
Wow.
It's just been duplicated, right? The first wave, people just straight up store our image, right? I'm not even talking, just straight up just taking our image from our site and just selling a counterfeit product. And some of the images were taken with my wife's bodily parts, like her hands, her feet.
Oh my God.
And they just took that. The worst offense is that we donate a portion of our profits to trees.org, which helps to plant trees.
Okay.
And we've planted by the end of this year, we'll have planted over 400,000 trees.
Wow.
And
Amazing.
they even took that in their marketing. And initially, I sent out, like any e-commerce seller who's not very well versed in IP enforcement strategies, you do the DMCA takedown, you take down the first wave, then they realize, okay, this is then how you're basically giving them the blueprint as to how to modify their listings to not get taken down.
Okay.
So they come back, they created their own kind of knockoffs, took out the infringing elements, right? And and over the last 3-4 years, I've just seen my sales decline. And at some point we were like, man, maybe we should shut down the business. That was like really affecting us emotionally. And luckily, just we didn't give up through just persistence and just kept trying to find solutions to deal with this problem. I was able to connect with Nick, who is a hero of small business owners who sell the case for what it is, which is infringement, and took a look at our IP portfolio and saw that we had a good claim, and decided to help us on a contingency, right? Because there were just so many when we first started in 2024. And it's almost been almost 2 years. They've had been working together. I saw what he was doing was very impactful, and how AI could help dramatically lower the cost of bringing these cases to trial. And we've just been working together ever since. I've been trying to implement AI into his practice, and we're taking on more cases now than ever because of it. And now we're just ready to about the solution, right? Both on the brand side and for the legal side, for the attorneys who are listening to this with clients that need to basically go after multiple infringers in one suit. With that said, yeah.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, like you said in the intro, I've been an IP litigator for the last 22 years. Before Schedule A started becoming a thing, my litigation was basically 1 versus 1, a plaintiff and a defendant. But with the explosion with e-commerce, now you're seeing so many counterfeiters or infringers that are out there. And I get calls all the time from my clients or referrals complaining about, hey, my sales are declining because so-and-so is infringing. And they're cutting their price so that they're losing sales. Those are all the concerns that the clients with IP have. And the Schedule A was really started with major brands like Nike and you name it. But it evolved into just anybody with IP who was willing to enforce against multiple infringers. And that's where I come in. And that's how I met Alan. And like he said before, it involves a lot of work because there's so many defendants that we're trying to bring all together in one lawsuit. But with Alan's help and with the advent of AI, now we're able to cut down the initial legwork almost to 90%.
Wow.
And so it's a significant reduction in time, and that enables me to be able to bring cases a lot quicker so that it helps the client, so that way they can enforce it more promptly so that their sales, there's no disruption in sales. So it's a win-win for both of us. I know, Alan, we've took control over the marketplaces like Amazon, Walmart, eBay, and so forth. And for me, obviously, getting my name out there, and there are more and more e-commerce business owners are interested in getting their IP enforced, and it's always a win-win.
We also help advise e-commerce owners what type of IP to register, because most people honestly don't know anything about IP, just like me, right? And these were multi-million-dollar lessons that, had I met Nick 5 years ago, would have been completely prevented. And so we advise clients a lot on registering the IP that have teeth when it comes to actual enforcement. So I just want to add that in as well.
So, Alan, I want to ask you, when this happened, what did that feel like in real time? So you've got a listing up there. I know it's horrible emotionally, but how did you find it's happening? Did you just notice your sales were down and you start looking? Did someone say, hey, dude, there's 14 others up here. What makes you unique? What did that feel like?
Back then, this was like very early on, right? And when something starts to work early on in the business, you get really excited. You start telling everybody, right? And then your friends that go on Amazon and they're like, hey, by the way, I found this copycat is selling your product for half the price, right? Then you go on Amazon, then you start you Google your product, right? And then you just see, I kid you not, back then it was like hundreds. Now, obviously we've taken down a ton, but back then it was like hundreds, right?
Back in the day, it was just eBay was the only place that the copycats would be. They'd be on eBay,
Right.
But now there's so many platforms.
There's so many platforms, right? And you just put your blood, sweat, and tears into this product. I still remember the days where we're like getting fabric samples shipped to us and was like feeling it or like looking at colors. Like, this was real work that went into creating this.
It's a
right?
labor of love. You created something you really loved and wanted to grow.
Right. And it was especially difficult because this is not my only business, right? Like, my wife quit her job to start this business, and we were building our family while building this business together, right? So it was like, as a man, it felt bad. It felt like I was not doing my job, like protecting my family. And yeah, it's all kind of feelings, right? It's depression, it's anger, it's hopelessness, because well, I'm just one guy, and
Yeah.
this is essentially like a organized crime, if you will. It's like a cartel, basically. And
Yeah.
the platforms don't do anything because they have no incentives to enforce. They just
No, of course,
want
they get sales.
they get sales, so they have no incentive to enforce. So then, when you try the status quo, which is DMCA, and it doesn't work, what the hell are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So that's it sucks.
So, Nicholas, from the legal side, when a client comes to you with that kind of loss, how do you begin to quantify the damage and build a case?
It's typically fine. They know who the competitors are, or they know who the infringers are. And like what Alan said, they just do an initial quick search and there's a list of infringers that are out there and they don't know what to do because of the volume. Generally, that's how we know how big the infringement is. And then I try to come up with the plan to start a lawsuit. But with the AI and with CopyCatch, now we can do that work for the client. In addition to the information the client briefs to us, now we can actually update that with additional infringers that we find. So it becomes more complete. Whereas before, we would launch one lawsuit, and then the next day we find out that there's additional infringers that are out there that we didn't catch, or the client didn't catch, and we end up having to file a second lawsuit. But here, we don't really have to worry about that because now CopyCatch allows us to essentially have a complete list of infringers in the beginning so that we can actually get it started.
Fantastic.
We have tools internally that tries to estimate the sales. Like on Amazon particularly, sometimes it will say how many units are sold, right? So it's through both kind of data available and also using these sales estimate tools and to put together an estimate of what the potential case ROI is.
And you can
However,
see how many they've sold as well as how many you've sold, and then calculate what your sales projection should have been so you get real damages.
Exactly. And on the brand side, on the client side, a lot of times clients, they care about collecting the settlement, but what they really care about is the infringers being permanently removed and being permanently deterred to take action again. Because a lot of these people are they're just bad actors, right? They're just repeat infringers. Nick and I are dealing with this one bad actor right now. We finally took him down. And
Wow.
this is crazy, right? Because we sued him not once, not twice, 3 times, and he's still doing it, right? So it's so brazen, it's crazy, right? The real benefit that the clients have is protecting sales that should have went to them in the first place. That's the real ROI of the case, which is now you have a real moat around your business and you can actually protect that, and you can protect the sales that are going to come to you in the future.
Exactly.
The settlement is just a little bit icing on the cake,
Exactly. Nick, why do you think that so many IP attorneys just overlook Schedule A cases, even though the demand there is clearly there?
That's a really good question. So typically this type of work is based on contingency basis. And because of the amount of different defendants that are out there, the initial legwork, just the cost of starting a lawsuit is very expensive for attorney or law firms. For example, before I started my own practice, I was at another firm where we had about 600 attorneys, and the hourly rates was very expensive. And for me to start a contingent case like this would involve at least 1 or 2 associates and at least 2 paralegals and myself. And these are all based on a contingency basis. And although we hope that, so there's a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
there's a
that's
lot
right.
of overhead. And law firms are generally, although they're interested, they're only looking for that slam dunk type of
Yeah.
a case. So it's really hard for clients and potential clients to find a firm or attorney who would be inclined to take on this type of cases because there's a significant risk involved, and not a lot of law firm would actually want to touch it. And especially IP is so complicated. It's not just trademarks or copyright, but it also patents. And patent side gets more complicated, and there's more risk and more work. And so that's why there's a little bit of a pushback from the law firm side because of the business end of it.
So for those who aren't familiar, can you walk us through what a Schedule A case actually looks like, especially how one case can involve into 100 or more defendants?
If you're enjoying today's episode, let me ask you a question. When someone in your market searches for the type of cases you handle, does your law firm actually show up? And I'm not just talking about Google anymore. I'm talking about Google Maps, local service ads, Google AI overviews, and even platforms like ChatGPT. Because here's the reality. Search has changed, and a lot of law firms are losing cases every month without realizing where the gaps are. Maybe your rankings look fine, but the phone isn't ringing. Maybe your competitors are showing up in places you're not. Or maybe you're spending money with an agency and still can't clearly connect it to signed cases. That's exactly why we created the Law Firm Visibility Audit. At Law Marketing Zone, we help growth-focused law firms uncover where they're losing visibility, calls, and opportunities online. We look at your SEO, Google Business Profile, local service ads, AI search present, and even intake gaps. No pressure, no hard pitch, just clarity. If you want to see how your firm stacks up and where the opportunities are, head over to Law Marketing Zone and request your complimentary Law Firm Visibility Audit. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, because of the advancement of e-commerce, and a lot of these sellers, believe it or not, are all foreign. They're all coming from China. And because they're foreign companies, they felt that, hey, you can't really touch me. I'm in China, and you can do whatever you want, but you can't touch me. But what Schedule A, what allowed us to do is we can actually bring a lawsuit naming a group of defendants, be it 10, 50, 100. So it will be a large amount of defendants that we can all bring at one time. And so basically Schedule A comes from, the Schedule A is basically the list of defendants that's listed in Schedule A. Okay. And so that's why they call it the Schedule A complaints. And so that's what Schedule A is. And that Schedule A is specifically directed to foreign sellers, in particular Chinese sellers. And it enables us to bring a lawsuit and get an injunction and possibly get an asset freeze of their account, so that it effectively stops them from doing any business and transferring the money to their bank account in China. So it just gives the plaintiff, the small mom and pop stores, an advantage as to try to enforce their IP as well as try to get monetized and settle the cases.
I love that. And Alan, how does that compare with the traditional, you called it a whack-a-mole kind of approach for the DMCA takedowns? What changes for a brand once they go this route?
Yeah, I mean, it's really a day and night difference, right? I think DMCA is really a trap for brands because it leaves the enforcement decision based on the platforms. And as we discussed already, the platforms have no incentive to enforce, right? Mm-hmm. They might enforce a little bit in the beginning, but in the case where I was trying to send down like hundreds of takedown notices, after a while, they just stop responding to you, right? Because they just know you're just not going to do anything about it, right? What are you going to do? Are you going to do Amazon?
Yeah.
So if you're serious about protecting your client's brand with teeth, like you need to take legal actions. Because there's no consequence for DMCA, right? Sure, a listing might get taken down, but guess what? They'll just spin up another one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what a lot of these infringers do already. Is what they do is, these guys are smart too. When they plan to infringe on a product, they will just create multiple duplicate listings of the same product, just because they know they will get taken down. And you don't get any money back at brand, right? And there's no consequences. It doesn't deter them. Right. And you're actually weakening your case because now you're revealing, like, you're telling them to take away the evidence that they're infringing. Right. So that is literally the worst thing you could do as a client. Right.
And thinking about it, it feels okay. You've got 100 people infringing on your product. They're selling knockoffs. CopyCatch can actually go get the names and contacts of those people so you can pull a lawsuit on them.
Yeah, so what we do is we go through a process where we take a client's list and we expand that list out across multiple platforms, right? And then I think there is some law that has to identify who the sellers are on these third-party platforms.
Okay.
And then we figure out, like on Amazon, for example, nobody ever goes there, but there's a little sold by link. You can go in there and see who is actually shipping you this product. And from there, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see the detailed business information, right?
Okay.
And so we are able to extract that as part of the evidence package. And we also then will add the product to cart, take a screenshot of the checkout page to show that it's readily available to ship, right, to cross interstate commerce. And however, before AI, right, I think most law firms would just try to find some virtual assistants to do this. However, the issue is you get inconsistent evidence, and sometimes, we're humans, right? We're going to make mistakes, because when you run through hundreds of listings, you're inevitably going to make mistakes by manually copy and pasting, right?
Yeah. And forgetting a screenshot. Yeah.
Or forgetting a screenshot. And the opposing counsels, they'll sniff that out, right? If they're smart, if they're good, right? These cases, like Nick mentioned, right? There's risk, right? Because we got to post bond, right? And you want the evidence to be 100% accurate every time, right? So that these things are eliminated. These type of risks are eliminated from the suit. And we can help attorneys do that with the tools that we build internally.
Okay, so you both touched on automation. So CopyCatch, how does CopyCatch change the way that these cases are built and managed? Is it that you can actually find all of these people and culminate the data together? Is it taking images and those screenshots you're talking about and actually building a lot of your case for you?
Yeah, exactly. To initiate the case, you obviously will need the evidence package, right? And the evidence package is very granular, right? Because it involves screenshotting the products, and sometimes it involves screenshotting just different parts of the page. An agent that we built is specializing in screenshotting different parts of the page based on what the prompt is or based on what the evidence needs, right? And then goes through the process of figuring out who the sellers are, extracting the seller information, which is the data that that you need to present to the court to get to the order in order to enforce on the platforms. And also then going through using the browser to click add to cart, go to the checkout page, take a screenshot of the checkout page, right? So to do that manually, it would be cost efficient. It would make these cases not profitable for really anybody, right? The brand or the attorneys, right?
Yeah. If I can add, timing is always an issue because some of these sellers, they just sell out and then close that account and then they move on to next. Okay. And before we didn't have this automation, we were missing those infringers because the time that it took us to get those evidence ready, because it was all done manually. And one time, even though we have evidence ready, we find out some of those sellers are no longer available because they sold out or they closed the account. Whereas now the evidence gets collected, it's populated into just at one time. And then now it's basically instant. So we know that these are all live sellers who are actually selling the products. And so we're not missing any infringers, we're missing the time.
So you're saying some of these infringers will just come in with a really popular product, blast it for, say, a month, and then ditch?
Well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of these guys are just trying to, they just have a general store. Like, they don't have a theme to the store. It's just a bunch of stuff. Just whatever they can find or drop ship to sell. And so the other issue is sometimes the court requires the evidence to be timely. So if you took the screenshot 3 months ago manually, and it's taking these 3 months to then build a case, when the court reviews the evidence package, will say, this looks like it's outdated. We don't know if this is still the case or not. And then you'll have just wasted a lot of time and effort. We're really trying to, internally with my brand, I think Nick and I've gotten the process down so good now where we can essentially bring a lawsuit plus the package. Is once we finalize the targets, we can basically initiate the lawsuits within 2 days.
Oh, right? Wow. And is this something you're consistently scanning for your brand? Those are beautiful pillows. Is that something that you're consistently doing to protect your IP?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like the reason why we've gotten so good at it is because we've had the runs with my own product. And so we've worked through all the kinks each time. And I think it's unheard of to be able to bring a lawsuit within 2 days, right?
That's with that much data, that is crazy.
With that much data, right?
Yeah.
The lawsuits have gotten smaller each time because obviously the initial one, that's really where you make the big catch, right? Where you remove the bulk of it. And then it's just like tail end, right? And the suits get smaller and smaller. But it doesn't really change the process, right? But if a client came to us today and had 100 infringers, 200 listings, we would still run the same process where we have the agents prepare the evidence and we have another agent that assists with drafting the documents. And then Nick does the final red line and sign off. And then we go.
I love that. So, Nick, if a firm wanted to build this into a real practice area that was thinking about that using CopyCatch to help them organize everything, not just a one-off case, what would be the first step for them to get started?
Obviously, we want to be able to get our names out there, and feel free to reach out at CopyCatch. I think our email address is Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're available online. It's Alan at copycatch.ai or Nick at copycatch.ai.
Yep.
And also I've got my own law practice. It's long, but it's nslee at nslegal-ip.com. Most important thing is if you're going to do e-commerce, you want to make sure that you have your brand or ideal protected. You want to be able to have a patent, trademark, or copyright of some sort. Without that, it's going to be very difficult for you to thrive in this such very competitive e-commerce marketplace. And so I know we have few potential customers who've inquired as to their product. We're more than happy to advise them as to what type of IP that they should have gotten or they should still collect.
That you get now.
And so we can walk them from the beginning and then basically just educate them as to how to compete in this marketplace by having your own IP so that you can enforce that IP and be more competitive.
On the law firm side, I'm sure plenty of attorneys listening to this podcast probably has 1 or 2 clients that are doing e-commerce that are probably struggling with this problem. And previously, it might not have been profitable to take these cases on contingency because of the pre-filing investigation work that is required. However, if they would like to add an additional revenue channel to their firms through Schedule A practice and want to implement the same AI system that we're implementing ourselves, we'd be happy to help them consult, or they could also offload the work to us in terms of building the targeted list and doing the evidence collection part. We even have document templates that we could use. Obviously, not going to be for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But to Nick mentioned, right? It's an interesting, untouched space because you've got the Fortune 500 companies that are doing Schedule A. Of course, they're going to be doing it, right? And they don't really care about the cost.
Right.
However, 99.99% of the business in the US is small business, right? And so there's a huge unmet need in terms of IP enforcement for the small business owners. I think it's worth taking another look.
I think this is especially with the growth of obviously Amazon, the TikTok shop and Shopify, all these different things. Almost every ad I see on a TikTok is a knockoff of something because it's a ridiculously cheap price. I saw a Samsung phone for $39.99.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
So it does sound like you guys have solved a massive problem that can help small businesses and help law firms add a revenue stream. And so it sounds like you guys have made a great tool, and I wish you best of luck. I know people listening to us are going to want to connect with you and learn more about it. So can you give us again those URLs and how they can reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just go to copycatch.ai. That's our website. And there's a button there where you can book a consultation or just book a call with me. I'm Nick's screener because obviously we need to make sure Nick's time is protected, wisely used. But yeah, our emails are Alan, ELAN at copycatch.ai and Nick at copycatch.ai. Yep.
Perfect. We'll make sure that those are in the show notes. Guys, this has been a very interesting conversation, and I'm so excited to hear what you've done and how you're protecting small businesses' IP. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. Before you go, I want to make sure that you know about something that could be a real game changer for your firm. If you've been doing the work, showing up, serving clients, but your marketing still isn't producing the caseload you know you deserve, that's exactly the problem Law Marketing Zone was built to solve. My team and I work exclusively with law firms, and we don't do cookie cutter. We build a strategy around your practice, your market, and your goals. More high-quality leads, better cases, less stress, and more profit. Head over to lawmarketingzone.com/book a call and book your free case growth session today. The link is in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.
Before you go, if you're working with a legal marketing agency and still not sure what's driving your cases, it may be time for a second opinion. At Law Marketing Zone, we help law firms uncover the visibility gaps, wasted spend, and missed opportunities that could be costing them cases. Request your complimentary law firm visibility audit at lawmarketingzone.com and get clarity on what's really happening in your marketing. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Leadership in Law.